In the dusty archives of Madrid, thousands of photographs from the Spanish Civil War are stored. Many of them have never been properly examined. Their secrets remain buried under layers of time and oblivion. Among these historical relics, one photograph recently caught the attention of researchers, changing our understanding of the events that occurred in the autumn of 1937. At first glance, it was an ordinary military photograph, 23 soldiers of the Republican Army posing after a victory in the battle for Belchite. But when modern technology made it possible to see details invisible to the naked eye, the photograph spoke, revealing a story of betrayal, heroism, and unspoken truth. Dr. Carlos Mendoza never imagined that an ordinary day in the archive would turn his life upside down and change the pages of the history of the Spanish Civil War. He found himself holding a worn photograph, almost accidentally discovered among thousands of other documents. It depicted a group of Republican soldiers after the battle for Belchite in October of 1937. Carlos's keen eye noticed something strange. A young soldier standing on the edge was barely noticeably raising his hand in a strange gesture. It was not an ordinary greeting or posing for a photographer. There was a sense of tension in this gesture, a hidden meaning that was waiting for its hour to be revealed. Almost 90 years later, the gray building of the National Historical Archive of Spain rises above the streets of Madrid, holding countless documents, testimonies of the past, within its walls. Here, among the endless shelves with folders and boxes, the memory of the nation is stored, including its darkest periods. Every day, researchers from all over the world come here to touch history, to uncover its secrets. But some secrets remain hidden for decades, waiting for the moment when time and technology allow them to come to light. In 2023, Dr. Carlos Mendoza, a military historian from the Complutense University, was working on a study about little-known aspects of the Republican resistance during the Spanish Civil War. His work required many hours spent in the archive studying documents and photographs from that period. Carlos did not expect to make a significant discovery, but fate decreed otherwise. One day in October, sorting through a box of unexamined materials, he came across an envelope with photographs taken after the battle for Belchite. "I remember this moment so clearly, as if it were yesterday," says Carlos, sitting in his office, surrounded by books and documents. "I was looking through the photos without much interest until I came to the one with the group of soldiers. Something about it caught my attention, although at first I couldn't understand exactly what it was." The photograph was taken on October 7, 1937, just a few days after the Republican forces won the fierce battle for the town of Belchite. The photograph shows 23 soldiers of the 15th International Brigade standing in front of a ruined church. They looked tired but pleased with the victory. However, one person, a young soldier standing on the left edge, seemed tense. His hand was slightly raised in a strange gesture that did not fit into the overall composition of the photograph. Carlos decided to digitize the photograph and examine it more closely. When he enlarged the image on the computer screen, the details became clearer. The soldier's gesture was now clearly visible. He wasn't just raising his hand. His fingers formed a specific configuration that seemed vaguely familiar to Carlos. "I couldn't shake the feeling that I had seen something similar before when studying ciphers from the time of the Civil War," Carlos recalls. "But I was not an expert in this field, so I decided to consult with a colleague, Dr. Elena Suarez, a specialist in military codes and ciphers. Elena Suarez, a professor of cryptography and military history, became interested in Carlos's find. Together, they began to study the photograph and the documents related to the 15th International Brigade. The archive contained lists of personnel, combat reports, and personal letters from soldiers. Gradually, a picture of the events that took place in the autumn of 1937 began to emerge for the researchers. "The first thing we discovered was shocking," says Elena. "According to military reports, all 23 people in the photograph died a week after the picture was taken. Their unit was ambushed near the town of Fuentes de Ebro, and no one survived. This discovery made the researchers look at the photograph in a new way. Now the young soldier's gesture took on a sinister tone. Could he have known about the impending ambush? Was he trying to warn his comrades? So why did he choose such a secretive way? Carlos and Elena delved into further research. They studied all available documents related to this unit and the ambush it fell into. Official reports stated that the soldiers were killed in a surprise attack by nationalist forces. However, some documents contained conflicting information. We found a strange discrepancy, Carlos explains. One report stated that the unit was sent on a reconnaissance mission by order of the brigade command, but another document, dated the same day, stated that there was no such order and the soldiers were acting on their own initiative. This contradiction made the researchers suspect that there was more to the story than just an unfortunate military operation. They began to look for information about the young soldier whose gesture had attracted their attention. Based on his position in the photograph, they determined that it must be a man named Miguel Ortiz, a 19-year-old volunteer from Barcelona. There was nothing unusual in Miguel's personal file. He joined the Republican forces at the beginning of the war, served bravely, and had several awards for courage. Nothing indicated that he could be a spy or have any hidden motives. However, when Elena looked more closely at the gesture captured in the photograph, she made an amazing discovery. Miguel's finger position corresponded to a secret signal used by Republican intelligence agents, she explains. This gesture meant danger and betrayal. Miguel was trying to say that there was a traitor among them and that their lives were in danger. This finding opened a new direction in the research. Carlos and Elena began to look for information about possible spies and double agents in the ranks of the 15th International Brigade. They studied the personal files of each of the 23 soldiers in the photograph, looking for oddities, inconsistencies, any hints of betrayal. In the course of the investigation, they came across the name of Captain Javier Ramirez, the commander of the unit. There was little information in his personal file, which in itself was suspicious. He joined the International Brigades in April of 1937, just 6 months before the tragic events. His past was obscure. Documents about his life before the war were missing. The more we dug, the more oddities we found, says Carlos. In the archive, we found a letter from the brigade's political commissar expressing doubts about Captain Ramirez's loyalty. The commissar wrote that Ramirez often left without explanation and had access to secret information about troop movements. This letter was dated October 3, 1937, just 4 days before the photograph was taken. The commissar was planning to start an investigation into Ramirez, but he did not have time. On October 14th, the unit was ambushed and everyone, including the commissar and Ramirez, supposedly died. But was Ramirez really dead? Carlos and Elena continued their search and made another amazing discovery. In the archives of the Nationalists, which have only recently become available to researchers, they found a document that confirmed their suspicion. It was a report written by a nationalist intelligence officer, says Elena. It mentioned an agent with the codename Alcon, infiltrated into the Republican forces. This agent provided information that allowed an ambush to be set up on the 15th Brigade unit on October 14, 1937. And at the end of the report, there was a postscript stating that Agent Alcon had successfully returned to the location of the nationalist forces. The coincidence of the date and circumstances was too obvious to be accidental. Captain Ramirez was probably Agent Alcon. He betrayed his soldiers, leading them into a trap, and then faked his own death to return to the nationalists. But how did Miguel Ortiz know about the betrayal? Why didn't he warn his comrades more openly? To answer these questions, the researchers continued to search for information about the young soldier. In Miguel's personal belongings stored in the archive, we found a letter he wrote to his sister the day before the fateful operation, says Carlos. There were no direct references to betrayal in it, but there was a phrase that caught our attention. Miguel wrote, "I have seen and heard things that I should not have. Now I have to decide what to do with this. To remain silent means to become an accomplice. But speaking is dangerous, too dangerous." These words confirmed that Miguel had indeed discovered something suspicious. Perhaps he accidentally overheard Ramirez's conversation with the nationalists or found evidence of his betrayal. But he could not directly accuse the commander. It was too risky. Instead, he decided to use a secret signal in the photograph, hoping that one of his comrades would understand his warning. Unfortunately, no one noticed the signal, says Elena sadly. At that time, photographs were rarely viewed immediately after shooting. The film had to be developed and prints made. By the time someone could see the photograph, it was too late. The 23 soldiers smiling at the camera did not suspect that this would be their last photograph. A week later, they were all dead, betrayed by the man they trusted with their lives. Their story might have remained unknown, had it not been for the chance discovery of a historian almost 90 years later and the gesture of a young soldier captured in a faded photograph. In the course of further research, Carlos and Elena discovered an even deeper layer of this story. It turned out that Captain Ramirez's betrayal was only part of a larger operation by nationalist intelligence. An entire network of spies was operating in the ranks of the Republicans, coordinated by a high-ranking officer from Franco's inner circle. We found documents indicating that the operation to infiltrate agents into the Republican forces began back in 1936. Carlos explains. It was a carefully planned, long-term strategy. The agents were supposed not only to collect information but also to undermine the morale of the Republicans and sow distrust between units. Captain Ramirez was one of the most successful agents. Thanks to his position as commander, he had access to secret information and could influence decision-making. His betrayal led to the death not only of 23 soldiers from his unit, but also of many other Republicans who fell victim to ambushes and unsuccessful operations. After returning to the Nationalists, Ramirez received a new name and continued to serve in Franco's intelligence. After the end of the war, he was decorated and received a high post in the new government. He died in 1970, taking with him the secret of his betrayal, or so he thought. What is amazing about this story is that the truth still came out, says Elena. Miguel Ortiz was unable to save his comrades, but his gesture, captured in the photograph, preserved evidence of the betrayal for future generations. It is like a message from the past that waited almost a century to be read. But this channel is not for everyone. Some stories are too dark, too disturbing to listen to before bed. But the truth must be told, even if it is unpleasant. The story of Miguel Ortiz and his fallen comrades deserves to be heard. It reminds us of those who tried to make the right choice, even in the most difficult circumstances. Before we continue this disturbing story, let me ask, what country are you listening to us from? Leave a comment. We really want to know how far these stories of forgotten truth are spreading. Carlos and Elena's research was not limited to uncovering the identity of the traitor. They wanted to learn more about the 22 soldiers who were victims of his betrayal. Who were these people? What were their stories? Why did they end up on the fronts of the Spanish Civil War? The archives contained the personal files of most of them. Among the soldiers were Spaniards, Frenchmen, Americans, Britons, and representatives of other nationalities. They were all volunteers who came to Spain to fight against fascism. Many were idealists who believed in the cause of the Republic and international solidarity. One of the youngest soldiers, Antonio Garcia, was only a year older than Miguel, says Carlos. In his last letter home, he wrote, "Mom, don't worry about me. I'm here because I believe in what we are doing. We are fighting not only for Spain, but for the future of the whole world. If we don't stop fascism here, it will spread everywhere." Antonio never knew how prophetic his words were. 2 years after his death, the Second World War began, and fascism did spread throughout Europe. Another soldier, a Briton, John Smith, was a poet. In his personal belongings, they found a notebook with poems written on the front lines. The last poem was dated October 13th, 1937, the day before the ambush. A strange premonition permeates these lines, says Elena. John wrote about death waiting around the corner, about betrayal, and about the need to maintain faith in humanity even in the darkest of times. The researchers also discovered that among the soldiers were a doctor, a teacher, a worker, a student, and a farmer, people of different professions and social strata, united by a common goal. All of them left their families, their homes, to fight on foreign soil for their beliefs. What is especially touching about this story is that these people were more than just soldiers, says Carlos. They were people with dreams, hopes, and fears. They wrote letters home, took photographs, and kept diaries. They did not know that their lives would be so suddenly cut short by betrayal. The researchers decided to delve deeper into the circumstances of the ambush in which the unit fell. According to official reports, the soldiers were sent on reconnaissance in an area near Fuentide Ebro. They were supposed to gather information about the positions of the nationalists before a planned offensive by Republican forces. Captain Ramirez led his unit along a route that he claimed was safe. However, in a narrow gorge, the soldiers came under crossfire. The nationalists, warned by Ramirez, were waiting for them, well-prepared and occupying advantageous positions. The report of a surviving nationalist, which we found in the archive, describes how everything happened, says Elena. He wrote that the Republicans were completely unprepared for the attack. They entered the gorge without posting scouts, without taking any precautions. It was as if they were deliberately led to the slaughter. The same report mentioned that one of the Republicans, presumably the captain, separated from the group immediately before the start of the attack. This confirmed the theory that Ramirez faked his death and actually went over to the side of the nationalists right before the ambush. The battle was short and bloody. The Republicans, surrounded and caught off guard, put up a desperate resistance, but they had no chance. All 22 soldiers died. Their bodies were left on the battlefield, and only a few days later were the Republican forces able to return and bury their fallen comrades. What is interesting is that the official reports of the Republican command do not mention the possibility of betrayal, says Carlos. Perhaps they suspected that something was wrong, but had no proof, or more likely, they did not want to admit that there could be traitors in their ranks, so as not to undermine the morale of other soldiers. Nevertheless, some suspicions did arise. One of the documents found by the researchers contained a request from the security service of the Republican Army to conduct an investigation into the circumstances of the ambush. Particular attention was paid to the question of how the nationalists learned about the unit's route. But this investigation was not destined to take place, explains Elena. By that time, the position of the Republicans on the front was becoming increasingly difficult. They did not have the resources to conduct a thorough investigation into the death of one small unit when every day brought new losses. Thus, the story of the betrayal of Captain Ramirez and the death of the 22 soldiers remained unknown. It became just one of the many tragic episodes of the Spanish Civil War, a war that claimed hundreds of thousands of lives and divided the country for decades. But thanks to the chance discovery of a photograph and the attentiveness of a historian, the truth finally came out. Miguel Ortiz's gesture, captured on film, became a silent testimony against the traitors and a monument to the heroism of those who remained true to their ideals to the end. Leave comments with your theory about why Miguel chose such a secretive way of warning. Could his story have ended differently? Continuing the research, Carlos and Elena decided to learn more about Miguel Ortiz's life before the war. Who was this young man who tried to warn his comrades about betrayal? In the archives of Barcelona, they found information about the Ortiz family. Miguel was the eldest of 3 children. His father worked in a textile factory, and his mother was a teacher. From an early age, Miguel showed an interest in languages and literature. In school, he was one of the best students, and teachers predicted a great future for him. But the character reference written by his literature teacher stated, "Miguel has a sharp mind and extraordinary observation skills. He notices what escapes the attention of others." Carlos reads from the found document. This observation may have allowed him to notice Ramirez's betrayal when others suspected nothing. When the Civil War began, Miguel was 17 years old. Despite his young age, he decided to join the Republican forces. In his application to join the army, he wrote that he wanted to fight for freedom and democracy against fascism and tyranny. His political views were shaped by his father, who was an active member of the trade union, explains Elena. In the family archives, we found letters from Miguel in which he discussed the political situation in Spain and Europe with his father. For his age, he was surprisingly well-informed and had a clear position. On the front, Miguel proved himself to be a brave and reliable soldier. There were several commendations from the command in his personal file for his courage during combat operations. He especially distinguished himself during the battle for Belchite, where his unit played an important role in the victory of the Republicans. After the battle, the brigade commander wrote about Miguel. Private Ortiz showed exceptional courage and resourcefulness. Under enemy fire, he saved 2 wounded comrades, carrying them off the battlefield. Carlos quotes from the found document. Was it after this battle that the fateful photograph was taken, in which Miguel tried to warn his comrades about the betrayal? What happened between the battle and the moment when the photograph was taken? How did Miguel learn about Ramirez's betrayal? The researchers found answers to these questions in an unexpected place. Among Miguel's personal belongings stored in the archive was a small notebook that he used as a diary. Most of the entries were brief notes about everyday life on the front, but the entries made in the last days of his life shed light on the dramatic events. On the evening of October 6th, the day before the photograph was taken, Miguel wrote, "Today I saw something strange. Captain R was talking to a man I had never seen before on the outskirts of the village. They spoke in a language that I did not understand, but it was definitely not Spanish or French. When they noticed me, they quickly dispersed." The captain looked alarmed. Elena reads from the notebook. The next day, October 7th, the day the photograph was taken, Miguel made another entry. "Today I accidentally overheard Captain R talking on the radio. He was talking about our unit, about the planned route to Fuentes de Ebro. He was giving coordinates and times. Who was he passing this information to and why? I have a bad feeling." This entry confirmed that Miguel had indeed discovered Ramirez's betrayal. He accidentally witnessed the captain passing secret information to the enemy. But why didn't he report this to the command? The answer to this question was contained in the last entry made on October 13th, the day before the fateful ambush. "I tried to tell Lieutenant S about what I had seen and heard, but he didn't believe me. He told me that Captain R was a respected officer, and that I was just being paranoid. He warned me that if I spread such accusations, I could be accused of undermining morale. Tomorrow we are moving out along the route that Captain R spoke about. I know that an ambush awaits us, but no one is listening. What should I do?" This entry clarified the dilemma that Miguel faced. He tried to warn the command, but they did not believe him. His accusations against the captain were too serious, and without solid evidence, no one wanted to listen to them. In desperation, he decided to use a secret signal in the photograph, hoping that someone would notice and understand his warning. "It's a tragic irony," says Carlos. Miguel was trying to save his comrades, but in conditions of war, when trust is often the only thing that binds soldiers, his accusations against the commander seemed incredible. No one could believe that an officer with whom they had fought shoulder to shoulder could turn out to be a traitor. The next day, after the last entry in the diary, the unit set out on a campaign that became their last. As Miguel predicted, they were ambushed, and he and all his comrades died, betrayed by the man they trusted. What makes this story even more tragic is that Ramirez's betrayal was only part of a broader campaign by the nationalists, explains Elena. "We found documents indicating that during 1937, several Republican units fell into similar ambushes. It is likely that there was an entire network of spies and traitors operating in the ranks of the Republicans. Captain Ramirez was just one of many nationalist agents infiltrated into the Republican forces. But his betrayal had particularly dire consequences because he held a commanding position and had access to secret information. After the ambush at Fuentes de Ebro, Ramirez was transferred to work in the intelligence department of Franco's headquarters, says Carlos. There he continued to analyze information about Republican forces, using his knowledge and experience gained while serving in the international brigades. After the end of the war, Ramirez was promoted and became one of the key officers of the new Franco Security Service. He participated in the persecution of Republicans, many of whom were his former comrades in arms. In the archives, we found documents signed by Ramirez with orders for the arrest of former Republican officers and soldiers. Elena recounts. Some of them were sentenced to death, others spent years in prisons. Ramirez showed no mercy to those with whom he had once fought. Ironically, Ramirez himself lived a long and prosperous life. After the war, he married and had children. In the 1950s, he was awarded several medals for services to the fatherland. He died in the year 2000, 3 years after Franco's death, never having answered for his betrayal. His family still lives in Spain, says Carlos. They probably never knew about his past, that he was a traitor and the perpetrator of the death of 22 people who trusted him with their lives. The researchers decided not to contact Ramirez's family. They believed that children and grandchildren should not be held responsible for the sins of their father and grandfather. But they were determined to tell the world the truth about the true heroes of this story, about the 22 soldiers who died because of betrayal, and especially about Miguel Ortiz, who tried to save them. What city are you listening to us from? Tell us in the comments. We want to know how wide our audience is. Carlos and Elena's research attracted the attention of historians and the public. Their discovery shed new light on the events of the Spanish Civil War, a war about which there are still many myths and understatements. Our work has provoked a mixed reaction, Carlos admits. Some fellow historians have been skeptical of our findings, believing that we are interpreting too much based on limited evidence. Others, on the contrary, they supported us and acknowledged the significance of our discovery. The reaction of the deceased soldiers' relatives was especially important. Many of them had never known the exact circumstances of their fathers, grandfathers, or uncles' deaths. The official version only stated that they had died in battle, without any details. We received letters from several families, Elena recounts. They thanked us for uncovering the truth, even if that truth was painful. It was important for them to know that their loved ones were betrayed. They simply became victims of ordinary military actions. The letter from Miguel's niece, Arteiz Maria, was particularly touching. She had never known her uncle, having been born after the war, but the family had preserved his memory. For her, the revelation that Miguel had tried to warn his comrades about the betrayal was confirmation that her uncle was not just a soldier, but a person of exceptional courage and honor. Maria wrote to us, "All my life, I heard from my mother that her brother was a special person. Now I know how right she was. Miguel tried to do what he thought was right, even when it was dangerous. His example inspires me." Carlos quotes from the letter. The research also had broader implications. It forced historians to reevaluate the role of spies and double agents in the Spanish Civil War. Traditionally, it was believed that the Republicans lost the war due to the military superiority of the Nationalists, supported by Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. But Carlos and Elena's discovery showed that internal betrayal also played a significant role in the Republic's defeat. We found evidence that Ramirez was not the only nationalist agent in the ranks of the Republicans. Elena says, "There was an entire network of spies who were passing information about troop movements, plans, and the state of armaments. This significantly weakened the Republican forces and gave the nationalists a strategic advantage. This information has forced historians to take a fresh look at some of the key battles of the war, such as the Battle of the Ebro, where the Republicans suffered a decisive defeat. Perhaps this defeat was also the result of betrayal, and not only the military superiority of the nationalists. The research by Carlos and Elena also had personal significance for them. Both historians had spent years studying the Spanish Civil War, but had never before encountered such a direct human story. Before, I worked with numbers, statistics, general trends, Carlos says. But this story made me see the war through the fates of specific people. Miguel, his comrades, even the traitor Ramirez. They were all living people with hopes, fears, and dreams. Their stories remind us that behind every statistic of military losses, there are real human lives. Elena agrees. For me, this story became a reminder of why I became a historian. Not just to study the past, but to give a voice to those who can no longer speak for themselves, to uncover the truth, even if it has been hidden for decades. As a result of their research, Carlos and Elena published a book titled The Last Photograph: Betrayal and Heroism in the Spanish Civil War. The book received critical acclaim and became a bestseller in Spain. It has been translated into several languages, including English, French, and Russian. We received a lot of feedback from readers all over the world, Carlos says. Many wrote that the story of Miguel and his comrades had touched their hearts. Some even shared their own family stories related to the Spanish Civil War or other conflicts. The book has also drawn attention to the question of how Spain is dealing with its past. The Civil War remains a painful topic for many Spaniards. For a long time after the war, during the Franco dictatorship, it was only possible to talk about one version of events, the version of the victors. The history of the Republicans, their hopes, their struggles, their suffering, was largely forgotten or distorted. Our book has become part of a broader movement for historical memory in Spain, Elena explains. More and more historians, journalists, and ordinary citizens are trying to uncover the truth about that period, to tell the stories of those who were forgotten or slandered. In 2024, a year after the publication of the book, a memorial was opened in Belchite in honor of the 20 soldiers captured in the photograph. The centerpiece of the memorial is an enlarged copy of the photograph itself, and next to it is information about each of the soldiers, including Miguel Artaiz. A separate plaque tells of his attempt to warn his comrades about the betrayal. Relatives of several of the soldiers were present at the opening ceremony of the memorial, Carlos recounts. It was a very emotional event. Many cried seeing their loved ones finally receive the recognition and honor they deserve. Miguel's niece, Maria, was also at the ceremony. She brought with her the only surviving photograph of her uncle, taken before the war. In it, Miguel, still just a boy, smiles at the camera, unaware of what fate awaits him. Maria told me that she will always be proud of her uncle, Elena says. He was young, but he understood what it means to do the right thing, even when it is difficult and dangerous. His example inspires not only his family, but everyone who has learned his story. The story of Miguel Artaiz and his comrades is a reminder that even in the darkest times, there are people who choose the path of honor and courage. They may not achieve immediate success. Their voices may remain unheard by their contemporaries, but the truth has a way of coming out, even if it takes decades. I think Miguel's story tells us about the importance of truth and memory, Carlos reflects. He tried to reveal the truth about the betrayal, but he was not listened to. However, his gesture, captured in the photograph, preserved this truth for future generations. It reminds us of how important it is to preserve and study historical documents, photographs, and letters. They hold stories that might otherwise be lost forever. Elena adds, this story also reminds us of the price people pay for their beliefs. Miguel and his comrades died fighting for what they believed in. Many of them were foreigners who came to Spain voluntarily to fight against fascism. They saw the Spanish Civil War as part of a broader struggle for freedom and democracy in Europe. The research by Carlos and Elena continues. They are looking for information about other possible nationalist agents in the ranks of the Republicans, about other stories of betrayal and heroism that have yet to be revealed. History is never as simple as we would like it to be, Carlos says. In every war, in every conflict, there are heroes and traitors on both sides. There are people who commit amazing acts of courage and people who give in to their worst instincts. Our task as historians is to tell all of these stories, without simplifying or idealizing the past. The story of Miguel Artaiz and his attempt to warn his comrades about the betrayal of Captain Ramirez is a powerful reminder of the complexity of human nature and how individual personalities can influence the course of history. One person decided to betray his comrades for personal gain. Another person tried to save them, risking his own life. Their decisions, made in the context of the great historical event of the Spanish Civil War, had consequences that are still felt today. The photograph of 23 soldiers, taken in October of 1937, became a silent witness to this drama. It captures the moment when the fates of these people had already been decided, although they did not know it. All except one, Miguel Artaiz, standing on the edge with a barely perceptible raised hand, knew what awaited them. He tried to warn his comrades in the only way available to him. His signal was not noticed then, but almost 90 years later it was finally heard. Photographs have an amazing ability to preserve moments in time, Elena says. They are windows into the past, allowing us to see the faces of people who are long gone, to catch the expressions in their eyes, to understand their emotions. The photograph of the 23 soldiers has preserved for us not only their images, but also evidence of a betrayal and heroism that we would otherwise never have known about. Before we continue with this troubling tale, I would like to ask, how do you think the story of Miguel and his comrades could have ended differently? What would have happened if his warning had been noticed and understood? Leave your opinion in the comments. The story of Miguel Artaiz and his comrades is just one of the many tragedies that occurred during the Spanish Civil War. The war claimed the lives of hundreds of thousands of people, destroyed cities and villages, divided families, and left deep scars in the collective memory of the nation. But it is precisely such personal stories as the story of Miguel that help us understand the true cost of war, its impact on ordinary people who found themselves caught up in the whirlwind of history. I hope that our work will help to preserve the memory of Miguel and his comrades, Carlos says. They deserve to have their stories told, to have their sacrifice recognized. They were not just nameless victims of the war, but people with their own stories, dreams, and hopes. Elena adds, and I hope that Miguel's story will inspire other researchers to seek the truth, even if it is hidden deep in the archives, even if it takes years of work to uncover it. History is not static. It is constantly being rewritten as we discover new evidence, new perspectives. The story of the betrayal of Captain Ramirez and the attempt by Miguel Artaiz to warn his comrades remains a powerful reminder that, even in the darkest times, there are people willing to make the right choice, even if it means risking their own lives, and that the truth, even if it is temporarily hidden, has a way of coming out, illuminating the past with its clear light. The photograph of the 23 soldiers taken on an autumn day in 1937 continues to live on, telling its story to new generations. The story it tells is bitter, but also inspiring. It is a story of how one man tried to save his comrades using the only means available to him, a gesture captured on film, a gesture that overcame time and silence to finally be seen and understood. This channel is not for everyone, but for those who value the truth, who seek to understand the past in all its complexity. The story of Miguel Artaiz and his comrades will remain a powerful reminder of the price of war and the importance of preserving historical memory.